Hello again. In this video, I'm going to take you through the 9 core consulting skills. And these 9 skills are going to be the basis for the rest of the units that you're going to be pursuing during this particular course. The 9 skills, I'm going to take you through each of them in turn at a very high level, and then we will drill down into them in subsequent units of this particular course. So the first skill is defining. This is really about being able to understand what is the problem that we're trying to solve and what do we need to do to solve that particular problem. What does the timeline look like in terms of the time that we've got to solve this particular problem? And starting to think through what does this mean too in terms of the strategy of the organization? What's the link through to the strategy of the organization? That's the first skill. The second skill is really empathizing. It's how do we actually get on with people, understand people, be able to get that feeling in terms of the team dynamics, in terms of the organization dynamics, the politics of the business, very, very important indeed. It's how we build teams and how we manage stakeholders. The third skill is researching, absolutely critical for a good consultant, a good advisor. Being able to research what is behind the problem, what else is going on out there, what sort of best practice might be out there. How do we actually find information that can help us to perhaps solve this problem from around the world? The fourth skill, interviewing. Again, very important indeed for consultants and advisors. Being able to talk to individuals, being able to extract insights from the people that you're talking to within the organization, or indeed experts from outside the organization. And part of that is being able to question effectively. We'll talk about that in a later unit. The fifth skill, analyzing. The ability to analyze data and facts, to be able to start looking at information from all sorts of different perspectives. And important here, understanding the financials of an organization, being able to tie what you do back into the financials of an organization. The sixth skill is then synthesizing. We've got all this information coming together. How do we now start to identify the recommendations that we want coming out of this? How do we start identifying some of those key things that we want to actually take forward in the organization, the recommendations that we're going to be making? Sometimes this requires us to facilitate some group discussions. Otherwise, other key things that we have to do here, structured thinking. Being able to actually think through logically, how do we actually solve this particular problem? Seventh skill is innovating. And this is a really important area too, because as a consultant or advisor, you're bringing new ideas to the client. You really are trying to bring some creative thinking to the client, some different ideas that they may have not thought of before. And then the next skill is presenting, absolutely critical. I said in a previous video the importance of being able to communicate the answer. And so it's really important to be able to present fluently, succinctly, engagingly, flawlessly in front of your client. And then the final skill, the ninth skill, is coaching. Basically, as a leader of a team of consultants, being able to coach that team. The leader of a team of advisors, being able to understand the different attributes that people have in the organization that is part of your team and being able to coach them through to success. So you'll hear a lot more about these 9 core consulting skills as we drive further into the units. So as a process to help you to understand each of these particular skills at a very high level, what I'd like you now to think about is what is best practice for each of these particular skills. So a simple illustration here of what I mean is quite often think about an individual, indeed a profession, that might be brilliant at doing any of these particular skills. Simple example here, I'll give you a couple of examples to help you in your thinking here. Presenting. Think about a presenter who you know who's absolutely brilliant, who is passionate on the stage, who you admire as a presenter. And a classic, if you go back as far as I do in the world, is someone like Winston Churchill. And then maybe if you're thinking about empathizing, perhaps thinking about someone like a nurse who's working in a hospital, a doctor in a hospital, something like that. So I'll leave that with you. Think through what you think is best practice. And then what I want you to do is to rate yourself against each of these 9 skills, where best practice is basically 10, and I haven't got a clue what you're talking about is 1. So rate yourselves against each of these. The value of doing this is recognizing that as a team, you're going to have people who've got different skills, different competencies. And so if you understand where you're strong and you're weak, the team can perhaps help you where you're weak, and you can be helping the team where you're strong.